If there is a vote to decide which character is the most good-natured person, then Hiyori will become the winner by a long margin. Shiina Hiyori had always been a fan favorite ever since her introduction in Volume 6 first year arc, and she is loved by the readers exactly because she is normal and adorable. However, the newest illustration of Volume 2 third year arc gave me a really bad feeling. In a single glance, there is nothing wrong with Hiyori and her beautiful smiling face, but this illustration starts to get scary if we look at the bigger picture. So, let's take a look at it one by one. Let's start by analyzing the illustration. First, I am glad that Tomose Shunsaku is back to his old art style by drawing Hiyori with her thick and voluptuous thighs, because her previous illustration in the promotional artwork shows her with very skinny legs and hips, just like the rest of the characters. Tomose's art style had been evolving ever since the first volume, so don't be surprised if the art style changes again in the future. Back to the illustration, the main focus of this illustration is Hiyori holding a flower. It's unclear where the rose came from, either she is the one who gave or received the flower, but from the way Hiyori is holding the flower with both hands and keeping it close to her face as if she's smelling the fragrance, I could assume that she is the one who received it as a gift. She is smiling with the sign of blush on her cheeks, which indicates that she is happy with that flower. There is still a chance that Hiyori is the one who gives the flower to someone, but this chance is small because I cannot see how Hiyori will choose a flower as a present for someone. Knowing her personality, she will give them a book instead of a flower, so the possibility of Hiyori as the receiver is way more plausible. Although the person who gave that flower to Hiyori is not shown in the illustration, there is a 99% chance that person is Ayanokoji, because there is no other person who could make Hiyori smile that happily. If it's some random man, Hiyori will just simply wear a confused face and wondering how she will turn them down. However, even if it's Ayanokoji, giving a flower to the opposite sex is not normal by any means, so why does Ayanokoji do that? In the last volume, Ayanokoji mentioned that he had been avoiding the library since his transfer, but he already planning to drop by once the special exam is over. So I guess this is the meeting that he mentioned before. If we look again at the illustration, the background shows a glowing orange light with a bit of dark blue sky. So this scene happens around sunset, and from the tree and the street light, they are probably on their way to the dorm after spending time at the library. I don't know much about flowers, but it seems the type of flower Hiyori is holding is a pink-colored rose, which in flower language means appreciation and gratitude. If we took the flower language seriously, it would mean that flower is not for a confession, because love and romance should be symbolized by the red rose. However, let's put all the flower language aside, because someone giving a flower to Hiyori is already enough to create a misunderstanding. The flower is wrapped with plastic, so Ayanokoji probably doesn't randomly pick it from the garden, which means that he already prepared it before he met Hiyori, but only gave it to her after they left the library. This kind of scenario reminds me of Volume 9.5, where Hiyori is chasing Ayanokoji who just leaves the library to hand him her recommended book. At that time, Ayanokoji repaid her with a date, so it's not impossible if this flower is also related to a date, or maybe even more. From this point, there are two possibilities. Either Ayanokoji confessed to Hiyori, or he just led Hiyori to think that he has a feeling for her. I think the second option is way more plausible. Now that he broke up with Kei, it's no longer morally wrong for Hiyori to get close to him, so the future where Hiyori's feelings could bloom is no longer impossible, and that is what Ayanokoji wanted to use. If we look at the official website for the third year arc, there is a quote from Ayanokoji where he talks about emotions. He stated that he already learned about emotion. However, he realizes that its use is not limited to understanding oneself or showing consideration to others, but emotions could also be exploited to manipulate others in any way imaginable. We already saw Ryuan use fear to control people, saw Kayanagi use love to control Yamochi, and Ayanokoji already shown using both of them to control Kei and Ichinose. Even though he cannot feel it, Ayanokoji has already proven that it is easy to manipulate others by using their emotion, and after the entire 2 years of doing almost nothing except become a love interest, I guess it is now Hiyori's turn to become a victim of her own emotion. At the end of the Volume 1 third year arc, Ayanokoji has a meeting with Kushida where he tries to buy her loyalty so she could become his spy inside Horikita's class. If Ayanokoji needs a spy inside Horikita's class, then it's just natural that he will also need one in Ryuan's class. If Ayanokoji tries to win over Kushida using private points, this time Ayanokoji tries to win over Hiyori by taking advantage of her feelings. Ayanokoji choosing Hiyori as his spy feels like a double-edged sword, because on one side Hiyori is a highly valued member of Ryuen's class, but on the other side, her relationship with Ayanokoji will make her really suspicious. Looking at Hiyori's character, it also will be hard for her to become a spy, because her guilt is not something that she could handle well. Not to mention that Hiyori is not that stupid to betray her class just for her own feelings. It's almost impossible for Hiyori to betray her class, but Ayanokoji wouldn't do something without a reason, so let's try to look at it from a different angle. I once wrote a theory about Ayanokoji's intention behind his offer to Kushida. I believe the real reason why Ayanokoji did that is not because he needed a spy, but as a test for Horikita. If she could convince Kushida to work for her, then she would get a double agent on her side, but if Kushida chose Ayanokoji over Horikita, then Ayanokoji would expel her so she wouldn't become a burden for Horikita. In short, Ayanokoji did that for the sake of the Horikita class. Hiyori case is probably similar. Ayanokoji intentionally tried to manipulate Hiyori so Hiyori would get involved in the class battle. Despite her abundant talent, Hiyori doesn't like conflict, so she often avoids the battle between classes. If Hiyori decides to use her full potential to help her class, there is no telling how strong the Ryuen class will be. By forcing Hiyori to fight, it will create more balance between the four classes, and she could even become Ryuen's spy to observe Ayanokoji from close. This prediction aligns with Ayanokoji's goal, and most likely to happen because in the newest update from the official third-year website, Hiyori said that Ayanokoji could see so far in the future, but exactly because he could see that far, there is something that he cannot see, and that's why Hiyori will do her job the way only she could do. Hiyori's quote is similar to Sakayanagi's quote from volume 12.5, exactly because Ayanokoji is so brilliant, an unexpected weakness will emerge. This single quote is enough proof that Hiyori will take more action in the special exam in the future. Or, at least she will confront Ayanokoji in her own way, and not just waiting in the library just like what she always did. However, before we could see the future where Hiyori contributes in defeating Ayanokoji, we need to prepare our hearts for the next few volumes. Because Hiyori, who used to be the only innocent character in the series, will undergo a lot of development, in a good or maybe a bad way. This single illustration already told us that Hiyori's feelings will be used, manipulated, and finally destroyed just like Ichinose and Kei. Hiyori will eventually experience heartbreak, and there is nothing we could do to stop it. Actually, there is a little part of my heart that was hoping for Ayanokoji to change and finally reach a happy ending with Hiyori. However, that hope quickly dies in front of reality, because happiness and Ayanokoji are two words that are impossible to put in a single positive sentence. So, let's just pray for Hiyori happiness.